I think we're live. I think we are live. I gotta keep the Epi. Do I keep any guitars of the week? I keep none of the guitars of the week. They're all loaners. I mean, I could keep them, but I'd have to pay for them. Yeah, it's that money thing. There goes my budget. Let's go to Firebird cam. I tell you, this guitar is freaking huge. Huge. Nice mother pearl inlays, though. Real nice. Exactly. Love them and leave them. In fact, I was looking at guitars recently, but I can't buy any more guitars. Well, the last thing I need is another guitar. You know? The only thing I would get now is if it was like some guitar from the 80s, you know, that I've been chasing for a long time. And even then, I can buy one, but they want crazy money for them. So it would have to be at like a crazy good price. So that makes it even harder to find. So, you know, barring something like that, no. I did notice that, remember last week I was telling you that I almost bought an EVH, an MIJ EVH. There were two up there. There was one that had like a crack and a dent in the headstock, and they wanted normally $3,000. It was used. They wanted $1,950. Or they had one that the day after that one sold, one went up there in mint condition with the case candy and everything for $1,850, even $100. So I almost bought that one. That sold in 24 hours. The 1951 is back. So someone got the one for the $100 more and decided they didn't like the look of the dent or the crack or whatever. Or maybe the guy who bought the 1951 decided, hey, I see this 1851, and just returned it and bought the right and got the nicer one for $100 less. But that's what I would need. I would need it to be, quite frankly, I'd like to be closer to like $1,500. I'd like to be about half price or more from retail on a guitar. I feel a guitar loses about half of its value the second it leaves the showroom floor. So leave that for the people with money. And then I like to scoop in when they're like 50 to 60% off of retail. You know, which doesn't happen very often. But if you bide your time and you're looking for a specific model, it does show up. You can get them out there for around that. That EVH I was looking at last week, the one that was like sort of the 80s sort of, you know, hockey stick headstock with the kill switch, that was $550. That would put it at 55%. It's a $1,000 guitar, brand new. But it doesn't come with a case or a bag, and this one had a bag. So whoever bought it bought the EVH bag to go with it. So that was at 55% of retail. That's where I like to be, between 45% and 55% of retail. Once you get up to like 60, it's like, I'll wait. It'll show up. Exactly. Only suckers pay depreciation. I have bought brand new guitars, but it's pretty rare. I bought that Telly brand new. That was like, geez, I guess it was like 10 years ago, almost like this week. I think I paid $14.50 for it, but my wife covered like $1,000 of the $14.50, so it was a birthday gift. So even then, but you know, it's all out of the same pot, so it really is like I paid for it. Exactly, the hunt is the most fun anyway. See, William gets it. Once you get it, it's like, now I'm going to throw it on the pile. Now I'm bored. Now what else you got? That's how it goes. That's how it freaking goes. I actually lubed up the nut, which when I lifted the strings out, you could see they put some graphite in there, but it wasn't enough. A nut. It wasn't enough. I have the D'Addario nut lube, and it's very thick, almost like a white grease, right? It's pretty thick, kind of like even like a thick Vaseline almost, right? It's got some viscosity to it, so it stays in the nut slot, and it's got Teflon in it. And I find it works really well, and it like lasts forever. I've had that tube for a couple of years now, and I've really switched to that. I used to use the Graphitol one, but that's a little messier. That's the one that, what's his name uses? Philip Sace. I've seen him like just absolutely drench the nut slots with it. What a maniac. And because it works. That's a ceramic based one, right? It has little micro plates of ceramic that slide over each other, so it's very, very good, and it takes pressure really well. But this is, I think, Teflon based, but it works. All right, who do we got? Papa Blue, Jay Schaff, Andy, Mark, Rockin' Brow, Ogre Lord, Nelson, what's up? Tony, what's up? And Michael, and Jeffrey, and Fretless Ed, Yeti Motzi, Shammy Whammy. We got Matt, we got Speaker. Got all the regulars here. You've been happy with the tune and stability on the Firebird. You know, this wasn't bad, but I find that when I do that, it makes my life just so much friggin' easier. I really can tell the difference. You know, it really does. It really does make a difference. And I very often do it before I test the guitar out. I didn't do it with this one, and I haven't done it with I've been falling down lately. I haven't been doing it, boy, it really does make a difference. So I should just make sure I do it every single week, because what happens is is it's a brand new guitar with brand new strings, and the slots haven't been like worked through, and and the guitar just by bending the string, you send it out of tune. When you have a nice lubed up nut slot, that doesn't happen nearly as much. You go from like 80% in tune to like 99% in tune. And if you're 80% in tune, people are like, oh, I don't like the tuning stability. It's like, well, you got to lube the nut, got to do a little bit of work. Who we got? All Grain Brewer. Got William, Super Lead, Shane, and Trolls, if I didn't mention already, and Big D. All the norms, all the normies. Double R guitar. Exactly 60% of the time it works every time. Does the lithium white I use on guitar work on guitar nuts? It probably does, but I would worry that I'd be worried about the petroleum content, right? You don't want it to stain your guitar or stain the fretboard. That's where the D'Addario one, the D'Addario one looks like this. Comes in this tube. Let's go to Friction Cam. Oh, hold on. Wrong one. Right there. Friction remover. Right there. That's been working for me. So Shear says I probably wouldn't use wet lithium because it might stain. Yeah, that's my thought too. It's got like a little bit of grounding. What's up, Demont? What's up, Browns fan? Offbeat. And everyone else. Yeah, it's a big container, but the actual syringe is like that, and I'm down to my last. Right. No. I've gone through quite a bit of the syringe. Down to the last little bit. It's not Zempic. Tony says, thanks for the exclusive look at your secret gear room. Yeah. I've been wanting to do a separate video for my members because I really appreciate the members. And I was like, what can I do? And it dawned on me. I went back before I shot that, and I looked at all the gear that was in the synth room, and I realized like everything had changed. Like both PCs were changed. I added a second monitor, right? If you look at the first one, that monitor that's above the keyboards isn't there. I have two new, you can hear that rubbing my shirt. I have two new keyboards, right? I got rid of the Yamaha and I put the Nautilus in there, the Korg Nautilus. And I got rid of the, what was that other one? Oh, geez, I forget now. It's like a, you know what that is? That's this. I gotta put a little dry. We gotta lube that up. That's what that is. This frickin' little crispy donut there. The and is it fixed? Yeah, kind of for the most part. What it is, it's the suede rubbing against the finish, because the finish is so freaking clean that it's like, I can still hear it a little bit, though. Might take a little bit to work that in. Come on, get in there, you. Yeah, get in there. You son of a bitch. Better. Better? A little bit. Could be the bottom. No, I think it's the top. Because it comes up through the strap. Yeah, I think a little better. No. See, this is what I deal with. Just move it up here. And done. Very slight, not to worry. It's making me a little mental. Buddy was over here, but he doesn't like it when I'm over here because I don't pay attention to him. Oh, man. It's actually pretty sweet. I really dig this in through him. Yeah, I had quite, as you could see when I went through it, it's quite a bit. I found when I was watching the video later, I found myself repeating myself a lot, but I'm so worried I'm going to forget something. I wind up saying it 2 or 3 times. You know. So, yeah. So my daughter, did I tell you that, was that last week she came back? Or the week before? I think it was last week she came back. She just got back from Ireland. And she brought me, everything was Guinness. So she got potato chips with Guinness. The Guinness flavored potato chips. And they kind of do taste like beer. Pretty malty. And Guinness candy and Guinness everything. And one thing that was kind of nice was she got me a Guinness glass, which was really nice. So she couldn't buy one. She could have got one in the shop, but wasn't thinking. Then she didn't have a chance to get one, and she was at a pub, and she, of course they have a ton of Guinness glasses. She's like, "Can I buy the Guinness glass?" And they were like, "Sure." They sold it to her for like €1. Well, that's pretty good. Oh. What does your white Epiphone sell for? Which one? The Les Paul? I think new they were like $6.99 or $7.99. I don't have it any longer. This one's $16.99. And people are like, $16.99? Well, you can buy the Gibson one. It's only $5,000 more. $5,000 more. It's like $6,600 for one of these, the Gibson. But sure. Then the plastic plate will say Gibson instead of Epiphone. See that? That only cost you 5 G's. But yeah, they literally have a mahogany body, mahogany neck, and because this is the one that's inspired by Gibson, they use all the same techniques in terms of like layering the walnut and the mahogany, right, for the centerpiece, and right, because it's neck through. It's the same pickups. They use the same USA pickups. It's the same pots, and it's the same caps. It's also right. It's the same tuners, Kluson planars. But that plastic plate will say Gibson instead of Epiphone. That might be worth 5 G's to you. Stainless steel frets? Only if they offered stainless steel frets when this first came out. If they were doing stainless steel frets on the original one, then yes, this will have stainless steel frets. If the original Firebird did not have stainless steel frets, I'm going to guess it doesn't, then no, they wouldn't do stainless steel frets. Yeah, exactly, $5,000 more for the letters on the headstock. Done deal, pal. I'll pay you to meet you. It doesn't say Gibson. I'll bet you could go on Etsy and get one of those plates that says Gibson on it and put it on there. And no one would know the difference. They both have rosewood fretboards. They both have real mother-of-pearl inlays. Word to your mother of pearl. So, you know. But for some people, that plastic plate that says Gibson, that's worth 5 G's. Yeah, I don't think they'll do stainless steel on any of the sort of like we're doing the vintage thing where we're going to, yeah, nitro versus poly. But a lot of people, like myself included, they kind of prefer the poly over nitro. Nitro is the original finish that sort of beat up really quickly, kind of cracked and looked like shit within just a few years. You know, my diamond coat poly on my Kramer from 1983 looks like brand frickin' new. I love it. So I have no problem with poly. In fact, I kind of prefer it. I think it looks better, longer, cleans up better, just looks better. But you know, some people think it holds the tone back. The tone is shackled. Is the poly over the pickups? No, but the resonance. You see, when the guitar like braces itself, you know, through the resonance with the, it's like, you don't know shit about physics, do you? You just don't. I think it is the same headstock shape. I think it's the same everything. Except one difference. About $5,000. Could do a lot with 5 G's. Just saying. Exactly. Tone is in that plastic headstock plate. You know, you'll be an okay guitar player with that Epiphone, but the second you get that Gibson, oh, the playing, oh, you'll be so much better. Why do people like stainless steel frets? Well, it's the hot new thing and they last a long time. The problem with stainless steel frets they are a little brighter. You can hear it. You can hear the stainless steel frets. At least I can. They're definitely a touch brighter. Some would say a little cold. Lack the warmth of nickel. It depends. Certain nickel alloys are actually stronger and more durable, but not in fret application. Right? In there, the stainless steel is more durable. But if you went and looked on, say, what's stronger and more durable, nickel or stainless steel, any metallurgy breakdown will say the nickel. The nickel is stronger and lasts longer, especially if it's certain formulas. But that's not what they do with the frets. The frets is when it comes to the guitar frets, the stainless steel is definitely lasts longer. You know, yeah, it's a little tingy though, a little bit, a little ting. Got a little bit of a ting to it. Exactly, tone escape is a real thing. Well, don't ever take the friggin' tone plate off. Then the tone will just leap out of the guitar. You'll never hear it. You gotta bottle it up so that it comes only out through the pickups. That's just science. Yeah, no, stainless steel is definitely a little brighter. Definitely a little bit brighter, without a doubt. Ask yourself if you have a worn down frets. Any frets? Well, I always point to the guitar that if there was ever a guitar to have worn down frets, it was the RG 560 that I scalloped in 1989. Now, when you scallop a guitar and you have no fretboard underneath your fingers, you're going to wear down those frets because there's nothing stopping your finger, right? And those, tend to wear down a little faster. But I just completely rehabbed that guitar, and there was so much meat left on the frets, I was able to flatten them, with level them, with a bar, leveling bar, and crown them all and polish them, and damn, they're like freaking brand new. So I don't know. I think that the people that blow through frets really quickly, they might be gripping a little hard on the grip there, bro. Exactly. And if you have a tone clamp, then there's nothing to worry about. You're locking in the tone with the tone clamp. Gonna get a Casino and a DGT SE for Guitar of the Week if they have them. Gotta remember that they've never asked me to. And I want to point that out because it's true. They have never asked me to work off of the open box, scratch and dent, open box returns, blems, right? They've never ever said, and we want you to work off of, open box. But that's what I do. Because I feel like if they have to send me a brand new guitar and I open the box and now I'm returning to them an open box return, they take a hit. Every week they take a hit on a guitar. This program wouldn't last, right? At some point they'd say, hey, this has been great, but it's just too much money on our end to continue the program. And I recognized that from literally the first week. I said, you start ripping open brand new guitars and this program is going to be over in 6 weeks or 6 months, but they can't sustain that. That's asking too much of them. They're already paying all the shipping both ways, right? So it's a lot to ask them to also take a new guitar and make it an open box and take that hit off that open box every time. Now, they have sent me some brand new guitars. Usually it's something that just came out and I kind of really wanted to get one, and they've sent me some new ones. One time I wanted to do the new Epiphone with the new open book headstock. And I put the order in on an open box one, and it sold. And they said, "Don't worry, we're just going to put you on a back order." And it took months for them to get the next order in. It literally took the summer, but they got it in. But of course, they don't send me an open box one; they sent me a brand new one. So that was a brand new one. I think there was a PRS I wanted, that new Narrow Field 3 SE. That was a brand new one, and I was like, again, you keep doing that week after week after week, and they're going to be like, this is a lot of money. And so I said, no. So I tend to work off clearance. I work right off of open box return, scratch and dent, and we have had some dented guitars. I want to say the two that come to mind was the RG 550 Genesis model in black. That had a huge chunk of paint taken out of the bottom of it. I mean, freaking huge. And then I would say the other one was the Zakk Wylde Blood Eagle. That had like the tip, because it's, you know, it's a pointy guitar. You'll poke your eye out, kid. Someone whacked the point off of that and like broke the one of the tips off of one of those crazy angled, you know, that guitar is kooky, and they had really smashed the end of it. Those are easily the two worst ones. Usually it's a tiny little mark somewhere, or there's even no mark on it. It's just someone got it, wasn't through with it, and they wound up making a return. So. Appreciation for the other party coming from both sides. That's how you maintain good relationships. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I could, listen, it used to be, and Lord knows when I worked in a mom and pop store, everything was sold as brand new. You know, I don't care how many times we sold that guitar and got it back. It was still up on the wall as brand new. They can't do that when they ship, because there was a big case that happened, I forget if it was like the late 90s or the early 2000s, that basically accused a lot of electronics companies of getting back goods and reselling them as new when they were clearly an open box. They were clearly bought and returned. And so they came up, there was a law passed that basically said you have to record the serial number, and you only have one chance to ship that as brand new. And once that serial number has been recorded and shipped as new, you can never ship it as new again. You have to list it as a reconditioned, refurbished, open box, scratch and dent, whatever you want to call it, based on its condition, but you can't call it new. Schecter Diamond Series C1, you know, that sounds familiar, but, you know, I've had a few Schecters. It's funny because, you know, last week, well, I'll talk about it at the end of the show. Okay, so I don't want to bum you out too quickly. Not bumming you out, we're about 30 minutes into the show. I don't like to make the people who see this thumbnail later on and they're watching and go, when is he going to talk about the new Fender Vintera 3 series? So, this is not official. This is nothing official, but the Vintera 3 stuff has been leaking out. And I was on a, was that the guitar I hated? The C1? Was it the Diamond? Was that the one? Was it the C1 I just hated? Now you're bringing me back. So there was a guy who basically, you know, I belonged to some of the Fender forums, you know, and this guy posted what I would call pretty legit photos. Look pretty legit of Fender Vintera 3. Now, Vintera 3 hasn't even been announced yet. But someone put them up in their store, and someone happened to be in there and took a bunch of photos and posted it up on one of the forums. And I downloaded those friggin' photos because I was like, oh, that's some a little inside information, a little sneak peek on the sneaky and the peaky. All right. Here's the first one. Brace yourselves. Now remember, Vintera is short for vintage era. You know, that works. And so these are all going to be vintage spec of some sort, whether it's 50s, 60s, 70s, sure. But we're going to start out with, but Fender really kind of limits it to early 50s, 60s, and 70s. Nothing 80s or 90s, even though it is between 35 and 45 years ago. So let's start with the very first one, the guitar I would never buy. But as you can see right there, that is a Vintera. That's a Vintera 3. This is called the mid-60s Jazzmaster. Made exclusively for jazz. You have to be a jazz musician to play one. And whatever you do, for God forbid, do not just play a bunch of, you know, button-down shirt power chords. How dare you? No, no, no. This isn't for the flannels group. This is for the jazz player who wants to be a jazz master. If you master jazz, then you can play one of these. But only if you're a jazz master. Anything else, and the Jazz Master Police will be at your door. This is the mid-60s Jazz Master in what I would call a candy apple red. It's a gorgeous color. But I don't really play jazz, so of course I would never play it. Yeah, you have to be a jazz master. If you're just a jazz enthusiast or a, like, you know, jazz curious, no. It's for the jazz master. Did you read it? Master. You're going to master that jazz. And it's right there. As you can see, it has the clay dot inlays. And someone was like, is it like lacquer? On the forum. And they were like, no. They're all poly. Because they're at poly prices, not lacquer prices. So that is the Jazz Master. Not bad. Not bad. Not my cup of tea. Again, I don't really play jazz. This one, I think it moved. This is the late 60s Stratocaster in what appears to be Lake Placid blue. It has the 7mm oversized dots. I was like, oh, that's my Charles Nelson Riley. And yeah, they wiped this out because they don't want to get the dealer in trouble. And that's the late 60s headstock, right? With the transition logo between the early. So there was a larger transition logo. So this is, I'm going to call, like, say, 66, 67. Somewhere around there. Maybe 68. I don't know if they changed the logo by 68. But, and it's got the laminated, see that? It's a laminated fretboard. Again, these are all poly. Oh, my God. I was like, I can't wait for one of these to show up on the used market. Someone will buy it and hate it, and that's when I swoop in. As long as it's 50 to 60% of retail. Maybe 40%. We'll see. Tone sticker. But I really like this one. Of all the ones that caught my eye, this was it. That's it. Die damn sorry. Look at that. What with the Vintera? This is what they're calling the late 60s Stratocaster. Right there. Kind of like it. I kind of like it. This is, I'm going to say 50s. Usually when you have a maple fretboard, you're talking 50s. They're calling this a late 50s Stratocaster. You can see it's got the 3-color instead of the 2-color. And, of course, a maple fretboard. And I don't think this is a V-neck. I want to say this is a D-neck. Again, they blotted this out because they don't want to get the dealer in trouble. But, yeah, nice. There's the other Vintera 3 right next to it. Nice. This is the first look. I haven't seen anyone else post any of these on YouTube. I saw maybe the Jazzmaster, but I haven't really seen any other ones. That's what they're calling the late 50s Stratocaster. And so I think they're going to have an early 60s Strat. Yeah, right there. So once you get to early 60s, you get the mint green pickguard, you get the clay dot inlays, right? What looks like beveled on the, it looks like it's to the left of that Jazzmaster. Luckily, though, you don't need to be a Jazzmaster to play one of these. You can play all the power chords you want. It's nice. It's definitely nice. And then he took a couple of close-ups. So, gives you a little bit more data. Fender Vintera 3. Now, if you look, 2025 FMIC. So these have been like locked up for a little bit until the time was just right. Like a fine bottle of wine. They're not going to release it until it's just right, but these have been around. They're saying copyright 2025. Late 60s Stratocaster pickups, late 60s C-shaped maple neck in a round laminate. Remember, it's the laminate fingerboard. And then there's the same thing, but just more of it. Someone pointed out that the knobs weren't right. This one should be like green. The other two should be blue. I was like, uh-huh. Oh well, send it back. I do like that color, though. Love the color. Nice rounded fretboard, too. Noticing that? Nicely rounded off. Vintera 3. And those look like a hard, right? That's a hard cut. So, sharp top. And I think this is the last one. He got the same thing. He wanted to get the specs on Vintera 3, late 50s. So late 50s Stratocaster pickups, late 50s D-shaped neck. That tells me it's like a 59, right? Because by 59, they, maybe even 58, but they moved away from the V shape to the D shape. And one-piece maple neck, vintage style hardware. Again, copyright 2025. I mean, we're not too far into 2026, but obviously they've been holding these back. So here's all your photos. Late 50s Strat, late 60s Strat. That was a close-up. I probably cropped that so I could have a photo for my, a teaser photo for my thumbnail. There's the, I'm going to say early 60s Strat, right, with the clay dot inlays. Late 50s Strat. Late 60s Strat. And the Jazzmaster. Right there. Mid 60s. So what are they calling? They were calling the other one late, right? Yeah, late 60s. And the other one is late 50s. Yeah. So 58, 59. It really feels like a 59. Let's just take a quick look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, no. It would have 11, and it's a single ply. So it's not quite a 59. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. 2, 3, 7, 8. 8 screws for the pickguard mount. Right? You mount the pickup with 8 screws. I want to say they go to 10 in 59 and then 11 thereafter. So once we get to, like this one, should be like 11, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 11. Those are tone screws, so you don't want to skimp on them. And this should be 11 as well, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 11. 11 screws. I tell you, of all these, this one is calling my name. There's something about I don't know. I'm a big fan of the oversized dots, believe it or not. And I like that they're real mother of pearl. I'm not as big a fan of the clay dot. I like the mops, although those are probably Mott, right? Mother of toilet seat, right? I'm sure they're not plastic, they're plastique. What is wrong with you? But if they're, unlike the guitar I'm playing right now, which really does have real mother of pearl, I'm going to guess that those are what they would call acrylic. I really like it though. And notice that the pick rod hasn't changed, because by the time this guitar comes out, they solved the problem with the outgassing, right? The one that turns mint green would like lose, right? It would like outgas while you owned it, and it would change its color. It would change to mint green. That's like the early 60s, and then they changed the formula. So by the mid 60s, you know. Mint green? It kind of looks minty to me. No, a little bit. A little bit. Yeah, plus you have the, right, you have the clay dot inlays. So mint and clay, white and mop, single ply white and black, and then mint and clay. The two most important parts of a guitar: pickguard and the inlays. And there you have it. The new Vintera 3 series. Coming to a store soon? Question mark? We don't know. But you're getting a first peek. Sneak a peeka. Because I haven't seen these anywhere. In fact, when I went back to get them, I couldn't find the thread anymore. And I had to go through my history and pull it out there. I think they had shut down the thread. Because they were like, you know, they don't want to get in trouble with Fender. So I had to go back through my Google history. And I found it, though. And pulled it down. And there you go. Jazzy. Bluey. Mapley. And Blackie. Got all of them. Vintera 3 series. Coming at some point. Soon? Maybe. All right, so let's we can do can I do a I'm going to start a poll. So let's do Fender late 60s. I'll give you the color, blue. I'm going to do, actually, let me just, I can clean this up a little bit. Blue Strat. That's the late 60s blue Strat. Early 60s black Strat. mid 60s red Jazz Master. And lastly, late 50s I'm going to say 3-color sunburst Strat. And there you go. But I tell you, my vote is for the first one. It's for the late 60s blue Strat. That's kind of the one that really caught my eye. But that headstock isn't for everybody. A lot of people don't like the large headstock. I kind of like it because when I was a kid, that was all the rage, right? The smaller headstock was the older one. What color was the blue 60s? I think it's Lake Placid blue, like you're suggesting. I think it's Lake Placid blue. If I had to guess, it kind of looked Lake Placid blue to me. Now they might call it like, antique Lake Placid or aged Lake Placid, but that looks straight up Lake Placid blue to me. Again, I'll look at them again. Some people just want a maple fretboard, and so that's their only option because everything else is rosewood. So they only want maple. They don't like it when it's not maple. But I tell you, of those four, that's the one. I really do like the larger inlays because I'm getting old. It feels like every year I'm a little bit older. It's like I think I'm a freaking year older than the prior year. And that's the late 50s Strat, the late 60s Strat, the early 60s Strat, and I think they called this the mid 60s Jazzmaster. Take your time. When it comes to choosing one, listen to your heart. See which one. Remember, the guitar is 99% a fashion accessory. So just pick one that matches your outfit. Just to remind you what they all looked like. The old Jazzmaster, right there. A late 60s Strat, right there. I'll give you time to answer the poll. The late 50s Strat with 3-color sunburst. That can't be overlooked because they were 2-color for the longest time when they first came out. And then lastly, the early 60s Strat, which is a classic. Mint green, clay dot inlays. That's a classic look too. All right. All right, let's check the poll. Can I see the poll? Oh yeah, there it goes. Yeah, I'd say the late 50s, that late 60s blue Strat. You know why? It feels like it's the biggest departure from what they've been doing for a few years now. Right? That early 60s black Strat feels like something that they've just done more recently, right? With some of their 60s stuff. Same with the Jazzmaster. Right? It doesn't feel all that much different from some of their recent offerings. Same with the late 50s Strat. Again, kind of around the same, right? It's some of the recent offers, but the blue, the blue one, I can't remember the last time that they've had a guitar quite like that. It just feels like more of a departure from, you know, their standard offerings. Like, you'd have to go to the custom shop if you wanted one with that decal. All right, that's the only way you're getting one, other than finding an original one. But the custom shop would literally be cheaper at this point. I do like them dots, though. Nice dots. Is that what I'm down? Is that what I'm reduced to? How much I like the dots? Yes. I am literally that shallow. But this one has big dots. Sold. And of course, the transit, which this logo was only out for a handful of years before they went to what became the 70s, which went a lot, like another 10 years. So it's a kind of a rare headstock decal. All right, finish up your voting because I'm going to end the poll. Yeah, nice set of dots you got there, right? Exactly, nice knobs too. Yeah, I think all the Vinteras are made in Mexico. So, yeah. Exactly, it's all about the dots. It's all about the dots. If you got bad dots, your playing's gonna suffer, bro. That's just science. All right, finish up your voting. It looks like right now we're at about half people want the late 60s blue Strat, because I don't think it shows up on the replay. About 49% for the late 60s blue Strat, 21% for the early 60s black Strat, 16% for the 3-color Sunburst Strat, and 13% for the red Jazzmaster, which is, I think, a candy apple red. It's a good-looking color. I just can't play jazz. You don't see anything for your... Yeah, it could be your phone. You might have to be on a PC. We're up to 71 votes. Poll's been going for 8 minutes. We'll let it go just a little bit longer. Yeah, Vince Neil? I have not heard that. I'm going to go to where everybody goes when someone passes away. TMZ. Any word on TMZ? Or, you know, people have been saying Vince Neil's been dead for years. No, nothing. Nothing right up there. They're usually right on top of stuff like that. not seeing it. But a lot of people just, I feel like he's someone that, well, I'm showing that he had a stroke last year, but nothing that he's passed away. No, no, I'm not seeing anything. No, I don't. I think you got. I think you got maybe some bad info. That's what I'm saying. Usually TMZ would have it. All right, so we've been going 10 minutes. We got 77 votes. I'm going to end the poll. We're at 48% for the Blue Strat, 21% for the 3-color Sunburst, late 50s Strat, 19% for the early 60s Black Strat, and 12% for the mid-60s Red Jazzmaster. I'm going to end the poll because a lot of times, yeah, once I ended the poll, I can't frickin' see it. Oh, there it goes. They're finally like actually putting the results in the replay, because I'd be like, geez, we took this poll and it like vanished into friggin' thin air. Oh, hey, what's up, Aljon? Thanks for the Epi and Kramer love last few weeks. Oh yeah, no, I love both brands. No need to thank me. You can thank this fine Epiphone. It's been, in fact, you know, now that we're past the first hour, it'll clear something up. So a lot of people last week were like, I could tell you didn't like that guitar, Steve. Didn't seem like you were too into it. No, but you could read my mindset a little bit. Right before I shot that video, I got some bad news about my father-in-law, and that, you know, he had taken a turn for the worst, and he wound up passing away the next day. So you know, sometimes, you know, you're trying to put on a good face, you're trying to be you know, all gung-ho on things, but sometimes, you know, life just weighs on you a little bit, and you can't, it's hard to compartmentalize. And so, like, literally right before I shot that video, I got a series of texts from my wife basically saying, you should come up and see him, because he's not doing well. And I did. I went up the next day. I went up Sunday, and I brought her some lunch because she had been staying up there taking care of him. And we had lunch, and I saw him, and he was in a tough way. I said, oh, geez, boy, he really is. Because I was up there February 17th, And he was fine. I brought him breakfast, and we were talking about the Pats, and we were watching TV, and, you know, everything was fine. Everything was seemingly hunky-dory. And then that would have been a Tuesday, and then my wife went up Friday, and she says, geez, you know, his breathing is a little labored. He seems very tired, and his blood pressure's a little low. And she kept, you know, checking his blood pressure and everything. She goes, you know what? I think I'm gonna just take him to the hospital, which is a big ordeal because she can't like get him out of the house. She has to call like an ambulance, and an ambulance has to take him over to their closest one is Leahy Clinic up there in Burlington. They took him over there, and he was running a fever. He was running like 105 fever. I said, oh Jesus, well that's not good. And I guess he had pneumonia. And so they treated him with antibiotics, and he was doing better. Right? He was there for a few days, maybe a week, and he was doing much better. And he got like released to rehab. But when he got to rehab, they very quickly noticed something there. They said, "Oh no, he's got something else going on. He's in serious trouble." And so they called back over to the hospital, and they agreed. And they said, no, send him back. So they brought him back over to the hospital, and they basically said, you know, he's got some internal bleeding going on, we're pretty sure, and he's inoperable. If we try to do an operation, he won't survive the operation. So they put him in like basically hospice. And we took him back to the house, and they got him in the house. And they got a nice hospital bed set up. And my wife was pretty much staying up there. You know, couldn't leave him. And so she was staying up there, you know, and sleeping in one of the back rooms. And at first, you know, because I remember I went up there. And I went up there when the first time he went back to the hospital. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? He's like, I feel fine. He's like, I'm not in any pain or anything. I was like, okay, well, you know, that's good, you know. And then the same with the next day when he finally got home. I said, you know, he was all bundled up in the bed. I said, do you look comfy? He goes, yeah. He goes, I feel okay. But, you know, after like another, you know, like another week, my wife was like, no, he's kind of in trouble. He's getting worse. And when I went up that last weekend, when I went up Sunday, because I shot the video the day before. I shot the video last Saturday, and she had texted me saying, hey, if you want to see him before he goes, you should come up like tomorrow, because I don't think he's going to make the weekend. He's in really tough shape. So I did. I went and got her lunch, and I went up last Sunday, and we had lunch, and I was able to see him, but I couldn't really talk to him or touch him. She's like, you know, you don't want to jar him, and he's kind of asleep, and we're just going to leave him. And then I left there about 2 o'clock, and by like 5 o'clock, she was like, yeah, he just passed away. And there was a nurse there, because the nurse was coming by like every day. And they had to just reach out and get an RN to come by. So it was tough. It was tough, you know. So we had the service this week. Oh, it's been a tough week. Thanks. Thank you. He was 89, and that's why they said, they're like, he's pretty much past the 8. We can't operate on him. They said, you know, if it was something like small, we might be able to do it, but This would be like a major operation. And he was just too old. They're like, we can't do anything. So yeah, it was a tough week. But I will say this, the people who did the services for him, the funeral home, they were excellent. They were outstanding. And, we did a graveside service, and they had really dressed the whole area up. And he did a wonderful, service. And it was very nice. And then we went out to his favorite restaurant and had like a dinner for the family. But I'm gonna miss him. He was he was a good guy. And, he really connected with me because I was, more mechanical. He's, always on top of things and, always, ahead of things. And his son, although his son is into cars, he's not very, mechanical. So he had a nice day, back in January. And I just remember going out and getting a snowblower going for him. And he was so happy that I got the snowblower going. And they had broken off a bunch of shear pins. And I brought a whole bunch of shear pins, got the shear pins going, got the snowblower going. And then he was like, yeah, he goes, the only thing that I got to do is, he goes, I'm worried about the, my generator, because they, like us, they have a sump pump and they worry about it. And so he has a generator. And I got the generator going and he couldn't believe it. I said, no, I'll get it going. And he was so happy I got that going. Oh, thank you, the Metal Edge. And I appreciate all the kind words. And I was hoping to get through that without crying, but Buzz, good to see you. So, it's tough. It's tough to lose a family member. And, although he had been in decline for years, his wife passed away 6 years ago. Like I said, I was just up there February 17th. I went back and looked. And I brought him breakfast. And I brought him a coffee. And he was seemingly doing okay. And then it just took a turn. So he was 89. Yeah, me. Like my mother-in-law, she came from New Zealand from UK in the 50s, went through the Blitz. It was tough. Everybody used to call me almost daily for chats. Yeah, it's hard. People, it'd be 10 years, April 1st, that your mom left. Yeah, still grieving. It's tough. It's really tough. And I just want to read Metal Edge, blessings to you and your family. I know how hard it is to lose someone. I completely feel your heartache. I appreciate that. I know I should have waited to the end because I thought I was going to get through this no problem, but clearly I'm not. You know. My father-in-law ever play an instrument? No, he was talk about dating him. He worked for Raytheon, and he ran the offset printing press there because they had so many internal printings that he was running, like, and if you remember the AB Dick, right, offset printer that used water, right, and the ink had was like oil based, and oil and water don't mix. And we used one when I was in high school. And the AB Dick offset printer, and that's what he did. He did offset printing for Raytheon for like literally 40 years. Me and my art. The day my mom passed, came home 3 hours later. We went to my mom's favorite restaurant and had what she used to. Yeah, that's what we did. We went to his favorite restaurant, and we're probably going to go out again because not everyone could make it here. Some of his grandkids are in California, and some family members are in Maryland and in Florida. So maybe at like the end of May, something like that. We need like a good 60 days to put together a plan, to do something, but probably not till like the end of May. And he had another favorite restaurant. We'll just go to that one. And, that would be, because there was really only the local people that could go to this. So his immediate family and some extended family members. But it'll be, I think, better then, because then people can plan for it. So it does feel like it just did kind of happen, kind of suddenly, but not really. Like, he has been in decline, and he wasn't very mobile, and he had trouble seeing. He was actually legally blind, and so it's a tough life, right? It's a tough life when he had like, what do they call that? Like macular degeneration. So you have like spots in your eyes that you can't really see anything. You can see things like around the peripheral, but that's about it. Well, thank you, Tony. Sorry for your loss. SFB. Have a toast to you, Pops, on me. Cheers and rest in peace. I appreciate that. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, it was tough. So that's why when I shot last week's video on this guitar, it might have looked like I wasn't all that into it. So he was, he was a good guy. He, I have to say, he was on top of things. Anything to do with the house, anything, to do with making sure everything was right. He had a system down, and he was like on top of it. And I think towards the end, he really relied on me to be on top of it, right? To again, get the snowblower going, getting his generator going, getting everything ready, because like I said, his son, although his son is way into cars, he's not really onto the mechanical side of it, right? More like just like cleaning it up and detailing it and buying and selling them, not so much like repairing them. So I think in that sense, he really appreciated a lot of the work I did around there. So we'll see. It'd be good to see everyone. It'll be a big reunion at probably we're thinking the end of May, right? Give people time to be able to prepare. And my daughter's graduating college in the middle of May, so it's going to be busy then. And my son I think he's graduating he's at community college. He's going to be going off to UMass, I think, in the fall. So, like the middle of May won't work. It's really got to be the end of May after they're all done with their school and everybody's free. Then we can all get together. So probably at the end of May. You know. The boy says my dad's 85. He was doing okay until last year. He had a major stroke. Yeah, my grandmother had a stroke towards the end. I don't think it's going to be long now. It's going to be tough when he goes. Yeah, no, it is. It's like you like anything, there's like good days and bad days. So you're just hoping, right? You get glimmers of hope. Like I said, I was just up there in February, and he seemed fine. We were talking about the Pats, and, what about, we're going to get this guy, we're going to get that guy, and, what's going to happen with, I don't think Stefan Diggs was gone yet. What's going to happen with Diggs? And, he was holding a conversation about the Pats and everything. It's not like he was out of it. So, he seemed to be, pretty on top of things, but his body just let him down in the end. Thank you, Alex. '79, you've gone through a lot of passings. Yeah, the hurt goes away, but the sad vibe is there for you forever. Yeah, no, I agree. Was he a veteran? No, I don't think he ever did. I think he went, but he had a problem. He had, I forget what it was. He had a problem with like his legs or his feet. But he went to go sign up. And they said no. Might have been around the time of the Korean War, I would think. That sounds about right. Thank you, Saul. Yeah, 2026 has already had a lot of deaths. Yeah, I remember 2016. Between Prince, that was a year. Quite a year for passings. Yeah, but I'm sure people have already talked about it. Chuck Norris, and he was up there, right? 86, I think, like that. Yeah, you only get so many days. And eventually your days run out. So yeah, it was a tough week. But on a lighter note, we hadn't done anything for my birthday because that was all going on. My birthday was a couple of weeks ago, so we wound up all going out today and had a wonderful birthday out. And, you know, that was nice. So life goes on. I think Bowie was 2016, yeah. The start of 2016, I'm pretty sure. Like January or February. How do we know if one of us in this group passed? Yeah, you do hear it, because we have talked about Sassy Cat, who was someone from the group, who we believe, as we understand it, has passed away. Thanks, Calvin. Thanks, Terry. And Mark, yeah. Thanks, Assad. So, yeah, you know, that had all been on hold because of this. So we finally had a day. And I will say this, we went to a really nice restaurant. That place was packed. It's hard to find a parking spot. So it was, you know, they were busy. I guess, you know, Saturday, a lot of people down, you know, because it's part of the place we went is a part of a larger, like, shopping area. And, boy, they were busy. They were real busy. But we had a wonderful freaking lunch. A little on the pricey side. I didn't want to tell you what that cost, but it cost a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah, no, 2020 was tough. Yeah, the pandemic and EVH passing, yeah. I was lucky to have Sassy Cat come on one of Ben's members' hangs a few times before he passed. Oh, I didn't know that. If those are still up there, maybe I'll go back and I'll take a look. On one of, so do you have to be a member for Ben to be able to for Ben Coombs to see it? Is it like a membership only thing? Tony says if I don't turn up here, I'll probably pass. I hear you. First we lose Clammy. You know. It cost an R9. Yeah, dude, it really... It was an expensive restaurant. But I will say, it was outstanding. My food was really, really good. Really, really good. They were private hangs on Zoom, not recorded. Okay, understood. Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can get Clammy on the line. Have to tell Clammy we finally got rid of the tank. In other news, it's a tough pivot. As I think a few of you know, I have a projector in the attic. And the kids were complaining the other day that it's beeping. And, you know, my ears aren't great on the high frequencies. It's a super high frequency beep. And that happens because I put in an aftermarket bulb and it doesn't have the right software. So, like, it's an Epson, I think, LCD. And it just doesn't like it. It doesn't like that aftermarket bulb. So it's basically, it gives like a warning beep, like every so many seconds. It's annoying. And so they were like, can you get another bulb for it or whatever? So I was looking into getting another bulb for it. And I realized that that projector came out in 2011. In technology terms, it's kind of old. What was the restaurant? It was the Capitol Grill. And so the projector is 15 years old now. I think I got it in 2013 or 2014. My dad just gave it to me because he was getting a new projector. And was like, oh, you can take my old Epson. And my old projector was a 720p. This was a 1080p. So, it was a nice sharpness improvement. And at 2100 lumens versus like 1200 lumens, it was like much brighter. So, it was a no-brainer. So I got the Epson, might have been 2013, 2014, but over 10 years ago, like 2013, 2014. And so I started looking at bulbs, and I was like, am I really going to buy another bulb for this stupid thing? And I started looking into a replacement projector. And so you're scouring reviews, you're looking at YouTube videos, like what's the hot new projector out there right now. And the one that's getting the most rave reviews, and the one that ratings.com really liked, was the world's worst name. It's like Xgimi or Xgimi, Xgimi. It's a Chinese company, but it's 4K, and they use unlike my old one, it's DLP, which worries me a little bit because some people really, I don't really have a problem with it, but some people really suffer from rainbows. So we'll have to see when it gets here. But I was looking around at the different models, and I wanted to get, something decent. And it had been over 10 years. And so I was looking, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to spend. It's a couple of grand. I'm like, I'm not going to spend that kind of money. And I swear to God, it's like a freaking AI algorithm. Like, they knew I had been looking at that projector. And like the very next day, I went on to Amazon, and it was 25% off. I was like, oh my God, it was as cheap as what the base model was. So they have 3 models, the base, the Pro, and the Max. And the real difference between the 3 models is how bright they are, with the Max being the most bright, and then the Pro, not quite as bright, and the base is the base model. But the other big difference is the base model has 1 lens, and the Pro and the Max have a different lens, and 1 or 2 of the reviewers were like, it's like night and day between the two, because the nicer lens set on the Pro and on the Max is instantly visible. You can really see the sharpness difference between the base and the Pro is like night and day when they're side by side. They're like, you probably wouldn't notice it if you didn't have them side by side, but looking at them side by side, they are noticeably sharper to get up to that new lens set. And then the difference between the Pro and the Max is really just brightness. It's the same lens set. And instead of using a bulb, it uses lasers. I just need a projector with frickin' lasers. And they can't be replaced, but they're good for 30,000 hours, which is about 20 years at 4 hours a day. So, should be good. And so we'll see what happens. They do a lot of like firmware updates. It has Google TV built into it, and I can always return it if there's a rainbow problem. But I use a canvas screen. I don't have a rubber screen or a glass impregnated screen, and I think those make the rainbows worse. And a lot of people said, I don't see rainbows when I'm watching TV or movies. I only see rainbows like if I'm scrolling on a computer, right? Then you can start to see rainbows, but I'm not doing that. I'm not using it for, presentations, right? For boardroom presentations. I'm using it as a home theater. So we'll see. They got me. I friggin' bought it, and it should be here soon. And one of the things that really, was a thing that was not. It wasn't a small thing. Was how much you can shift the lens. You can go up and down 125%, and you can go left and right like 45%. And that is huge when you have a room where, you want to sit across from it. You have to place it. Now, the one I have now, I have hanging from the ceiling. But I don't think I'd hang this one. It looks too heavy. I wouldn't want to risk it. And it's so much bigger. It's like a big, bulky box. I think instead, I'm going to put it on a stand right next to the sofa up in the attic. And then I can just use the lens shift to get it in the right position. And, hopefully that'll work. If it doesn't, like I can always, it's not like I'm throwing away the Epson, I can always just buy another bulb for that if this doesn't work out. But the reviews have been stellar. They friggin' love them. And so and like I said, it was like a few of the models were the top models on ratings.com. So it seems like the brand has got a lot of love out there. And, coming from a unit that's 15 years old, I'm sure it's going to be like much better. And one of the ways to make blacks look blacker is you make the whites look brighter, right? You make the bright stuff brighter because your eye will stop down from the brightness, and then blacks actually look blacker. So they said the only time it's like not very good is like when you run it in super max mode, but nobody does that because number one, you usually get a color shift. In this case, it's like a green shift. And the fans have to crank up to keep it cool from like running everything at like max brightness. I've been running the one in the attic on eco mode since day one. But I'm sure eco mode on this will be, they said on eco mode it's dead silent. And it looks better for like movies, right? Because you get a more even field. Maybe gaming, you'd step it up a little bit. But it seemed to me that it's going to be such a massive leap. A lot can happen in 15 years. And that's how old my old one was. It's such a massive leap in technology that I'm sure it's going to be really freaking good. So I swear they could tell I was looking at it and hemming and hawing. And I went on the next day and it was like on Amazon, it was like a flash sale. I was like, oh, really? But the price was no one had it that low. I had looked, A lot of people had it between $400 and $800 more, but I think the $800 more is like the list price, and nobody sells it at list. So it was it was pretty awesome. I was like, sweet. You getting weather that feels odd? Well, you know, it was nice out today. It was gorgeous out today. But we had a windstorm this past week on like Monday. That, man, I was worried we were having some freaking damage out there. Because I was in the attic and I heard something bang off the attic roof. It must have been a branch. I was like, oh, jeez. If something's going to rip one of my shingles up. I went out the next day to assess the damage, but it was fine. There was nothing up there. But we had like 50, 60 mile an hour winds. And we were lucky to escape with pretty much no damage. And now they're saying like tomorrow we're going to get rain. And I think Monday we're going to get rain turning to a little snow. Right? It's a cold front. So there's going to be a little snow on the backside. Michael says, did I debate long versus short throw? I didn't, because I don't want it in front of us on the floor or on the coffee table, because it's going to get moved. I wanted to put it next to the sofa in the back where I have all the audio and visual equipment. I wanted to put it back there in the corner, but just like out into the middle a little bit, like right next to the sofa. And that's about 11 feet away, maybe 11 feet, 6 inches. And you need a long throw for that all day. The brightness to contrast on laser projectors is wicked high. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Michael says, I see rainbows on things like the opening credits. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I've heard that they've put out a number of firmware updates to help with a whole bunch of things like crushed blacks and rainbow effect, right? Because they can tune the wheel for the rainbow. So you hope with, constant, updates, firmware updates, that it'll find a sweet spot at some point. Yedimatsu said here too pretty windy. Yeah, I tell you, it was windy. I mean, you could hear that freaking, during the day they were like, yeah, the wind is going to kick up, and I was like, oh, the wind isn't too bad, but that night, oh my God, no, they were right. It was freaking windy. The wind like really came through. So. Pretty rough in the city, yeah. I can imagine, like, is it all wind tunnels? Florida's wild sometimes with the weather swings. Oh, yeah. Oh, I can imagine. And when you guys get rain, you can really get rain, like crazy amounts of rain, which is why there's so many rain, sort of like runoffs, right? Western Mass may get snow. Put the roof. You put the roof away early and you jinxed it. Yeah. Well, I was worried about shingles flying off my roof, Calvin. I was definitely a little worried about that, but I went out there and I was good. I said, okay, let me go see the damage. Nothing. I think it was a branch coming off a tree, and it just hit the roof. But yeah, it was freaking windy. It was crazy. Matt says the wind knocked down your tree last week. A tree across the street, there's a little stretch where there's no house. It's really the back end of the people on the street on the other side, right? So you'd have to go down the end of my street, take a right, take another right, and then you'll be into the front of that house. We're on the back side of their property. And they had a tree there, and that tree came down and was kind of in the street. And the people next door tried to drag it out of the street a little bit, but I think it was a little heavy for them. And when I came home the other day, I went over there and grabbed it and was able to pull it off. But I heard the town out there, I think it was yesterday morning. Yeah, I think it was yesterday morning. They were out there with chainsaws and a friggin' chipper, which is diesel powered. The thing is enormous. That thing was so freaking loud. And they were going around the neighborhood and finding any downed branches, and they were chipping them up, you know, cutting up and chipping up. Yeah, when I think of a Firebird, I know it's going to sound crazy, but I think of Paul Stanley, because I think he's on the cover. Is he playing a Firebird on the cover of the Kiss Alive album? And, of course, Johnny Winter. When I think of the Firebird, those are the first two names that come to mind. For oddly enough, Paul Stanley, and then and Johnny Winter. But I played the Johnny Winter one, and he had a wider neck than this one. It was the Johnny Winter signature model. So when you get the signature models, you can get out their necks because they want it a certain way. Something that the manufacturer themselves might not be too keen on because it's a little exaggerated. It had a really wide neck, but very thin front to back. But it was wide. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the weirdest neck. But that's what he wants, right? And they do what the artist wants. Oh, thank you, Zach. I also think of this headstock a little bit. I don't know if it's the reverse one, but I think of the Gibson Victory, which is a guitar I always kind of liked from the early 80s. That was a I almost bought that. I went to go get my Fender the Strat, which is the one I was all hot to get. And we went down to EU Wurlitzer, which later turned into Tower Records. Goes to show you how big that friggin' building was. And we went down to EU Wurlitzer, and we went in there, and I just wanted a Fender the Strat. But, you know, to my dad's credit, he was like, well, why don't you try it if we're here? You sure you just want that one? Why don't you try it? And I tried two other guitars out. They didn't have a Fender the Strat out on the wall, but they had one brand new in the box in the back room in the warehouse. But on the floor, they had two guitars that I tried out. A Hamer Flying V, which might be actually worth more than all those other guitars because it was so rare. And that was nice, but the one I really liked, the one that felt like really good, was a Gibson Victory. I forget if it had the reverse or the non-reverse headstock, but it was a Gibson Victory. And they just reissued them, but they're using the Explorer headstock. But back then it was this headstock. And then I still wound up going the Strat because I said, listen, you came here to get the Strat. Just get the Strat, which is what I did. Yeah, you're right. The Trinity, the Lopez model also has this headstock. Yeah, right. I have to say, Steve, I now, when watching videos, I try to figure out who's playing what instruments. I blame you. Yeah. You know, when I was real little, I couldn't discern it. I didn't know what was the sound I was hearing. It took a long time before I could, like, distinguish, like, oh, that's keyboard and that's guitar. Okay, I knew what a piano sounded like, but, you know, I didn't realize what guitars sounded like. You know, you just don't know. And certainly couldn't distinguish, like, the bass guitar. Not when I was real little. But you get older and you hear it. Especially when you start playing in a band. You're like, oh, right, that's okay. I didn't catch that. Pete Thorne demoing his synth guitar sounds for Saturday. You know, I always thought I would own a synth guitar. You know, get something with like a Roland, you know, hexaphonic pickup. Because I was so into synths. It's like it just made sense. And I never got one. Which is just always shocking that I never got around. I did have a MIDI guitar. An old Ibanez from back in the 80s, but, you know, the guitar I'm sure would be fine, but you'd have to be able to plug it into a more modern tracking system. The problem was that the processor and the tracking was so slow, it had crazy latency unless you were at the very, very high end of the guitar, because then the notes, it does it by reading the wave. Well, it needs like the full wave to be able to figure it out. And the lower you got, the wave would get so big, it would take a long time before it figured out what note it was to trigger it on MIDI. But when you're playing up really high, because the frequencies were so much closer together, right? So much right, the crest and the trough were so much tighter, it could figure it out faster. So it kind of worked on the ultra high notes, but anything like in the mid or the low, oh God, the latency was just through the roof. It was just awful. Yeah, right. The high waves, it has a higher frequency. And all frequency is the distance between troughs and crests, right? Peaks and troughs. And so, right, waves go from really big to tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And when it can get that many peaks and troughs, it can figure it out faster. Today they can do it because the processing is so much faster. Now they can just figure it out much, much faster. It's pretty much instant. But back then, it was only kind of instant, only in the highest notes on the guitar, which was frustrating. I did like the old Ibanez. What was it? Crossing? Xing? Probably meant crossing. Troll says he has the Roland GR synth, which is, I think, what the Ibanez was based on, too. And the Fishman triple play, and the Fishman tracks much faster, yeah. It's newer. So Pete was using an Eventide H90 for a harmonizer and one other pedal and a pitch shift on his regular guitar. It was wild. Yeah, I'm sure. But boy, those Eventides, they kind of corner the market on that pitch shifting, huh? They're really kind of the best out there. Graphtec, I don't think I've heard of them. Graphtec had a system called Ghost Pickup System 15 years ago. Okay. I feel like it's been a good for about 20, 25 years now. Sort of like in the, like by 2005. You got to remember the MIDI guitar I had was from 1985. That's a lot. That's a lot friggin', you know, older. And in tech terms, it's like a million years. Have a good one, speaker. Let us know if you get a 25% discount on the Blue Vintera. No, I can't spend money on guitars right now because I just bought a projector. They got me though. They'll bet. I knew that. I bet if I dangle a friggin' discount in front of this guy, he'll go for it, and I did. They friggin' got me. You know. Oh yeah. Wow. It's 9 o'clock already. All right, guys. Thanks so much, and thanks for putting up with my friggin' my tough week. I really appreciate it, and everyone who contributed, I really, really do appreciate that. And we'll do it all again in a week. I definitely have one video coming out this week. I might have more than one. We'll see. We'll see if I might have time to do a couple. But I got a new video coming out on Monday, which is it could be the first acoustic guitar we've done for Guitar of the Week. Could be. Yeah, how's that for a teaser? No, you rock. Thanks so much, trolls. I really appreciate that. No, you guys rock. You're my weekly rock, and I really appreciate it. You guys have a great week. We'll do it all again next week. And until then, have a wonderful week. And I'll let you know next week how the projector turned out. You say it was amazing, or you know what, it wasn't that great, I sent it back. All right, guys. I really appreciate all the kind words. And you guys have a great week. And I'll see you next week. All right. I know I have to prep this a little bit before I say end stream. Okay. I'm off.